Attention, elevated arachnid threat levels have been detected.
As luck would have it, 2024 turned out to be a rough year to release a co-op multiplayer game featuring a satirical, fascistic military force battling hordes and hordes of alien bug monsters. Ironically, of the three major games that fit this description that hit PCs and consoles this year, Starship Troopers Extermination is the least effective at pulling off the mighty few versus the endless enemy motif. Of course, even if it doesn't match the high bar set by Helldivers 2 and Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, you can have a decent amount of fun with its unique features, like larger teams and clever base building sections before the swarm becomes too monotonous. Starship Troopers Extermination offers up an extremely skippable single-player campaign where you can learn the ropes without letting your team down. You play as a nameless soldier in the Special Operations Group, handpicked by General Johnny Rico, who's portrayed by the movie's Casper Van Dien in a less than enthusiastic performance.
Trooper, welcome to the SOG. There's only one rank that matters here, and that's mine.
There really is no plot here. This mode is really more of a glorified tutorial removed from the chaos of the online environment than a fully fledged story with a beginning, middle, and climactic end. I put more than 15 hours into the early access version last year, so I am not really a green recruit anymore, but I can't imagine that a true beginner would get anything out of this experience that they couldn't pick up in a far less boring fashion in the field. Skipping past that, things get a lot better. Playing online, Extermination does a great job of making sure 16 players divided into squads of up to 4 never feels like enough by sending endless and relentless waves of bugs to crash against you and your fighting force. Dozens and dozens of bugs can be actively tearing you and your base apart on screen at a time. And even the dead bugs, the only good kind, can become lingering tactical problems as their corpses can stack up and become ramps for their friends to scale walls with. It's a welcome but stiff challenge, as any large enemy can turn you or your squad mates into ribbons with just 1 or 2 attacks, and even basic warriors can shred you without much more effort. It gets hectic quickly.
Arc scans report massive Hive cores in the planet depths. The brave troopers of the Deep Space Vanguard are venturing into the depths of hell to take the fight to the bugs.
To counter the bug threat, there are 6 playable soldier classes to choose from, each with unique ability and equipment options that specialize their roles pretty well. For instance, though they are both heavily armored, the Guardian and the Demolisher would never be confused with one another. The former can build a personal fort on the fly to protect themselves from surrounding bugs and stabilize their unwieldy heavy guns, while the latter deals damage almost exclusively by blowing things up with grenades and rockets and relies on teammates to cover them. To Extermination's credit, the starting gear package does a decent job at summarizing what each class can do, but unlocking all 6 classes' abilities and equipment takes some serious grinding. So if you'd like to know more, it's a huge commitment. You also can't swap these classes mid-mission, even if you get killed and respawn. That means unless you roll with a group of 15 of your closest friends, relying on randoms to be team players and pick wisely can be frustrating, and some matches will end badly. Variety can be an issue too. Though Extermination is quick to throw impressive waves of hundreds of bugs at you and your trooper brethren at a time, there are only 9 different types of enemies among them, and half of them are the same type of bitey quadruped soldier from the movie in different sizes and colors. The remaining species are all ranged attackers. These guys shoot straight at you, and these guys that arc blue and red death juices like siege weapons. With source material that includes such a variety of interesting critters, it's baffling that the weirder and more interesting ones are nowhere to be found. Survival usually depends on good fortifications, and in general, building a base is a quick and seamless process of pulling out a special gun, pointing it at a place on a specified zone on the map, and placing down an object's foundation. This only claims the spot as taken though. If you want to erect that wall or activate that ammo supply station, you need to repair it and make it real, as simple as switching modes on that build tool. It's a little extra hassle at first, but in the likely event of its destruction, the foundation will remain so that a build section can simply be repaired again. A clever way to let you rebuild good ideas quickly without having to lay everything out every time. For my money, Horde is the mode most worth playing in Extermination. Granted, aside from having so many people in play, it's not much different than any other Horde mode in any other game we've seen since Gears of War popularized the idea. Here though, the scramble between rounds is real. Resources go fast and the 45 seconds between waves is not much time to fix much of anything, so you have to choose wisely. The catch is, it's very difficult to get a real macro level plan together on such a large team. I had to get used to just stealing from the shared pool of building ore to build my fortifications as soon as possible and ask for forgiveness later. I basically always found a wall to mount a heavy gun on and held my own. And that's a pretty reliably good time, but all this disorganization made me long for someone in old school Battlefield or Planet-sized Commander role, where one player's full-time job is coordinating the others. If you prefer a more intimate team experience, Hive Hunt is a complete change of pace from the rest of Extermination because you only have to staff one squad of 4 troopers to trundle through caves in search of bug eggs to blow up. It's a tougher mode, due in part to the lack of bodies on my side and absolutely no lack of carapaces on theirs, but also with no opportunities to build fortifications at all. There's nothing to put between you and the many dangerous and strong enemies that will bombard you in these tighter spaces. Even when the areas open up, you really start to miss those huge walls when tiger bugs lock you into a death loop because they can easily one-shot you with almost zero repercussions. My least favorite mode is Arc, which asks full teams to build and maintain a base around the eponymous device while also venturing out into the map to refineries to produce and escort resources back to power it. Coordination is key, but of course it's completely absent most of the time when playing with mostly random people. Base building with limited resources means that any fortifications are first come, first built, with no quick way to communicate ideas outside of barking into voice chat and hoping everybody hears you over the rest of the chatter. With few exceptions, most of my Arc rounds end in long, losing wars of attrition, where my teammates quit one by one without so much as a bot to replace them, and those of us sticking around are forced to cower behind walls that we must constantly repair until we either run out of respawns or the Arc gets destroyed. In comparison, the Assault and Secure missions are similar, but night and day in difference in how consistently enjoyable they are. The key here is that the order of operations is reversed. First, you travel across the map completing smaller objectives, then you hunker down into a base and survive a long series of bug waves. What needs to be done is self-explanatory and requires very little coaxing until the very end. So everything flows towards this big standoff organically. Everyone on the team has no choice but to work together on the little objectives on the way, so it's overall a much better experience than Arc.
Be advised, sensors indicate arachnid threat levels have risen.
However, every mode suffers from being staged on mostly empty maps, with the only real life or personality on them being troopers and bugs. There's nothing to see or find that isn't an objective waypoint marked clearly on the map. It feels barren and uninteresting when not actively pulling the trigger. There's also a general lack of polish all over Extermination as well. Bugs sometimes just stand around, completely oblivious to the fight at hand. Skills occasionally activate too many times or don't go off at all. Performance is also a bit shaky. I had to lower the video settings to medium so that I could get a smooth and consistent frame rate on my Intel Core i9-9000 and RTX 3070 GPU, and that's something I don't recall having to do when I played it in early access a year ago.
The Deep Space Vanguard deployed to the harsh and inhospitable world of X-11. Keep your helmets on, drive back the bugs, and collect valuable planetary data in our war against the arachnid threat.
In the Space Imperialist vs. Alien war for your attention, Starship Troopers Extermination brings a knife to a nuke fight. It's a shooter you and your friends can find some fun in, especially in its tough Horde mode, using its simple yet distinct classes that help focus the overall large-scale bug blasting vision. But you're doing so in spite of how long it takes to unlock all of those more interesting gear gear and abilities those classes have in store, how uncoordinated some of the multiplayer modes are, how downright bad the single-player campaign is, how barren the handful of available maps feel, and the lack of biodiversity in the bug swarm itself. It's a serviceable battle that can get frantic in the thick of it, but there are far more noble causes to give your virtual lives for in 2024 than this. Would you like to know more? Check out our reviews of Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 and MechWarrior 5 Clans. And for everything else, stick with IGN.